Hello, everyone, and this is my review for Monday Night Raw on October 17th, 2016. And well, they started off the show this week with Kevin Owens, Jericho, and Rollins. They were kind of intertwining in the promo there, and it did eventually lead into a match with Jericho and Rollins. And before we get into the match, it's like, first of all, they did do a lot of good storytelling in this one, especially the whole aspect of, Jericho telling Owens to not be in the match or not get involved in the match. He wanted the match on his own. But also, the line that I'll say I never want to hear again, and that was when Rollins decided to say to Jericho he should be called Sparkle Crotch. No, never again. Bad line. Bad. But they also teased the story element as well. Jericho didn't want Owens around, so they started the match. Honestly, they had a really good match, and of course, whenever someone says they don't want someone to be at ringside, they eventually find their way to ringside, which Owens does, and he actually ends up causing a little bit of a distraction, and Rollins picks up the victory in what was a really good match between the two of them. But again, this starts that dissension and driving that wedge between Jericho and Owens that we know a feud is eventually coming between the two of them, and it came off really well here. You get the little bit back there, and then you get a spot backstage where Jericho, of course, was about to go through his entire spiel on Kevin Owens and almost calls him a stupid idiot like he had been doing with everyone else, but then stops himself. And then the two of them kind of bicker and argue, and that's when Stephanie McMahon pops in. Of course she has to pop in. Of course. Yeah, you're having a great segment, and then all of a sudden Stephanie McMahon. And she's saying that this is basically how she accepts the challenge for the 3 Survivor Series matches at Survivor Series, obviously. But the Survivor Series tag team match is like, I need my generals to be on the same page and everything in that sense. It's like you're having such a good segment. And then Stephanie McMahon. Stephanie McMahon. Oh, she's great on the microphone, but her character just like destroys everything. That nobody really ever gets a win over her in the end. With anything in the terms of promos or anything in that sense. It's very rare that someone gets one up on Stephanie. So every time you see Stephanie McMahon come in, it's like, okay, who's going to get it from her now? And in this case, it's Jericho and Owens. You had a couple of interesting matches. We'll go through some of the time killer matches here because, well, unfortunately, one of the time killer matches was the Cruiserweight match. Though it was a very fun match. The match itself was a rather quick one, but the action in the ring was kept really quick. The selling wasn't bad in the end because it wasn't like, one guy takes a move, then pops out, and then something in that sense. No, they were selling everything, and they did have a relatively good promo backstage with Drew Gulak, Tony Nese, Brian Kendrick, and T.J. Perkins, Cedric Alexander, and Rich Swann. I thought they did a relatively good promo, setting up a little bit more between T.J. Perkins and Brian Kendrick going into the Hell in a Cell match. The 6-man tag was also a relatively decent match. Good action inside the ring, just was a little short. But that was about it. In that sense. You also had R-Truth, or not R-Truth, but Golden Truth and Mark Henry going up against the Shining Stars and Titus O'Neil. And I guess this whole aspect of them starting this whole Titus brand thing and then eventually and just having him lose every match is kind of his gimmick now. Kind of sad. I'll say that. It's kind of sad. But yeah, Mark Henry and the Golden Truth go over in this case. Nothing match. Just there they really kind of kill time in that sense of everything. You also had Braun Strowman going up against 3 local guys. You remember the whole aspect of saying it's like, if I don't get real competition, I'm going to start doing stuff to everybody or something in that sense. So he goes out there and destroys all 3 of these guys. Actually, this squash match was kind of fun. I'm not going to lie. The squash match was actually kind of fun. Just with the way that these 3 guys made Braun Strowman look, it worked in the end. And lo and behold, of course, he grabs a microphone and says, I want the real competition. And lo and behold, who's the person that answers the challenge? Sami Zayn. Great. Sami Zayn's going to be the first one to put this guy over. Kind of hoping it wasn't Sami, but in the end, he's also kind of doing nothing right now. So it's one of those things that's like give and take here in that sense. But you have a feeling that Sami Zayn's going to be putting over Braun Strowman here in the very near future, and we'll see how everything goes and how they play off the storyline and everything. That they can definitely play it off as an underdog type story, the bigger guy who's still going up against a really, really good, not so big in the terms of why Sami Zayn is. Sami Zayn's no small guy by any stretch of the imagination. It's just like him compared to Strowman in general in the terms of height and stature in that sense of everything. So we'll see how everything goes. You also have Sheamus going up against Big E. So they're continuing on this whole aspect of Cesaro and Sheamus, how they don't get along. And my God, they did a really good job with this one. During Sheamus' entrance, you know how, like, when they go to when they flare the lights on Sheamus now, they have it start from the back and then it pans over to the front. Oh my God, the spot with Cesaro just starting the Facebook Live thing, standing right behind Sheamus. It made it almost seem like they were coming out together like a proper entrance initially, but of course it was more of their dissension and everything like that. But it came off great. I absolutely loved what they did here. That was actually very good stuff throughout the entire match as well. Just really good stuff between him and Big E, and then of course the interactions with Cesaro and the rest of the New Day. It just came off really well. I thoroughly enjoyed the match. And the antics that were going on. It plays off of the storyline of Sheamus and Cesaro not being able to coexist in any way, shape, or form. And it plays off to the story really well, and I thought it came off great this time. But the one downside is lo and behold, you have the Hell in a Cell match. Well, not in the Hell in a Cell, but the pay-per-view being called Hell in a Cell. Still don't like that name for a pay-per-view. But there you go, in that sense of everything. But lo and behold, what do? They have the title match on the pay-per-view. New Day versus Cesaro and Sheamus. 6 days beforehand. Cesaro and Sheamus versus the New Day. Sad face. Sad face that you're going to give away the first match 6 days before the actual title match. I just don't like that aspect of everything. You're also doing the aspect of Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins next week. I didn't really throw that one in there. Kevin Owens and Seth Rollins, they're not having a one-on-one match, but they're having a triple threat match with Chris Jericho in there, but still, again, they're facing off in something that will require them to have a lot more interaction against each other versus a tag match or something in that sense. And I just don't like it when they do. I personally don't like it. I know some people will. I'm sure these matches are going to be fine next week and everything, but it kind of takes away from the pay-per-view match a little bit later down the road. You also had this week Bo Dallas going up against Neville. And they have Bo Dallas go over Neville in this case as well. Like they're still playing off this aspect of Bo Dallas showing a more vicious side, and it's like Curtis Axel's supposed to be his buddy, and he's like the only believer, but Bo is the only one that should be believing in Bo, according to Bo Dallas. That's a lot of Bo's. But they have Bo Dallas go over in this case, which was a relatively good match between the two of them. Dallas comes off as a very vicious throughout the entire match and everything. Again, wish they were doing more with Neville because he's great in the ring. Not so great elsewhere at this point in time, but great in the ring. So I wish they would give him a chance to potentially do a little bit more elsewhere, maybe show that he has a little bit more than anything else with just other than his ring work, but we'll see how all of that goes down the road here. But also afterwards, Bo Dallas continues this vicious streak by attacking Curtis Axel and leaving him lying too. So maybe this is kind of a face turn time for, not for Bo Dallas, but for Curtis Axel. And we'll see where they go with everything in that sense. I mean, in the end, it's not much of anything, but they're kind of actually doing something with Bo Dallas now, and they're attempting to do something with him, which is better than just having them there filling space and doing nothing or something in that sense. So in the end, comes off rather good. You also had or I have to go into this one first before I go into the Bayley and Dana Brooke thing. You had Carl Anderson going up against Big Cass, and what was a real quick, and Carl Anderson gets hit with one move, or not necessarily one move, but gets pretty much destroyed by Big Cass in this case. And Enzo kind of takes out Luke Gallows as well. It's almost like, can these two guys catch a break in any way, shape, or form? It looked like they were going to be built up as like monsters, and now they're just losing really quick. Now, granted, we'll have to give this one a chance, because this could just be one match in whatever their series is. It's also a one-on-one match, and it doesn't necessarily build towards the tag team. But it almost feels like, can these guys catch a break? You almost feel like they should be putting these guys over in some way, shape, or form, especially with the video packages they did a couple weeks ago. But they decided to go with a really quick match with Carl Anderson and Big Cass. With Cass going over, which, don't get me wrong, I like Enzo and Cass, but still, it leaves you scratching their head where they're going with this feud with Enzo and Cass and Anderson and Gallows. And all we have to really say is we got to wait and see. But the problem is, the problem towards Gallows and Anderson is, like, can they really catch a break? And are they going to build this team as, like, a dominant team here in the near future? Or that, like they were trying to do with that video package a couple weeks ago? Or are they just going to have them go to the away side and never really be heard from again? I mean, only time will tell. But I'm not necessarily liking where they're going with everything with the match, how the match went this week. So we'll see where they go with it, and we'll see how everything goes. Now, on to the Dana Brooke Bayley match. Hard to say here, because the match itself, leading into the finish, was not bad. Good selling, decent selling on both sides. Dana, a little bit sloppy here and there, but not bad. And we know how good Bayley's been in the ring as well. The character is not really fully caught on, though this week. Another thing to really throw out there, and I'll get into one of my pet peeves before we go into the main talk for the night. Now I lost track of where I was going. So we were on Dana Brooke and Bayley, and like I said, they were doing rather well in the ring. They go to this ring post spot where Bayley is selling a ring post spot, and Dana Brooke drags her into the ring, and it's pretty clear that she's supposed to have her foot on the bottom rope to try to get her under leverage, but she completely screws it up in the end. That is... It makes it look like now she's gotten a clean victory, where it looked like she botched the finish in some way, shape, or form to go along with it. And it's like, not too long ago, I gave her credit for how she was working in the ring during I believe a triple threat match with Sasha and Bayley. And now it's just like she's showing again that she's not necessarily so good in the ring. Or, when it comes to the ring psychology portion of everything, she's not so good in that portion of everything. Like, character-wise, it's a strong character and everything in that sense, but a botch like that's not... It's not good, because even though the entire match could have been good, she botched the finish, which kind of hurts the match in that sense of everything. But with that being said, there was something that went here that also went into a couple of other matches, especially the six-man tag with the cruiserweights as well, that I have to get into before I get into the other stuff. It's a little pet peeve of mine, and we see it so often, but I don't talk about it that often either. But the commercial breaks during the matches. Good God. I know it happened during Jericho and Rollins, and that was a longer match. I understand that. But you even get it like in matches with, I think you get it in there as well with Golden Truth and Mark Henry. And the Shining Stars and Titus O'Neil. At least you did during the entrances. What was it? There was also one during, like I said, the 6-man cruiserweight match. There was one in there. It's like so many times we get commercial breaks during matches, and it kind of takes away from building those guys during matches, because sometimes they come back from commercial break and within 2 minutes the match is over with. It really means nothing in the end at that point if they just go to commercial break and all of a sudden a couple minutes after they come back the match is over with. It's like you don't really get time to invest into anything as a person watching. But they've got to do the commercial breaks. I get why they do the commercial breaks. You got to appease the advertisers, the sponsors, everything in that sense. I always get that aspect. It's just like, is there a way that they can time it where they don't take away from a match in some way, shape, or form? Or maybe the match goes on for a little bit longer than maybe 2 or 3 more minutes after they come back from the commercial break. It's just one of those little pet peeves I see a lot, and I don't really talk about it that often. You also, tonight, you had a segment with, I'm going over my notes here to make sure I get to everything, and I think there's only 2 things really left to get to. Yes. So up next, I wanted to talk quickly about the whole promo from Rusev, and this segment was really, really good, actually. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It was what I called time to meet the Rusevs. Basically, he was going off and showing pictures of his entire family, and of course, this eventually leads to Roman Reigns coming out and interrupting everything as they brawl, and in the end, they have, like, so many times they would just have, like, Reigns, like, on the losing end, but in the end would gain the advantage. But this time they have Rusev continually destroy Roman Reigns, eventually putting on the accolade inside of the middle ring. Still don't get the whole aspect of how Steel Stairs amplifies the accolade, but they did that. They did that. I guess it looks cooler. It looks better. I don't know, but it really doesn't look like it does anything special in that sense of everything. But overall, I enjoyed the segment. I enjoyed the promo from both sides. And everything, and it leads more into their Hell in a Cell match going into the pay-per-view, which honestly I feel like is going to be a really good match between the two of them. Out of the Hell in a Cell matches, the ones that obviously I'm looking forward to are Rusev and Roman Reigns, because the story maybe doesn't warrant the match, but it's still strong enough that it needs a gimmick at this point in time. Same with Sasha Banks and Sasha Banks and Charlotte, which they had 2 sit-down interviews, one with Charlotte, one with Sasha. I thought both of them kind of got the point across, and they're trying to amplify a little bit more the historical or the aspect of them having the women's match inside of the Hell in the Cell. They're doing something different. They're giving them this gimmick. And the story actually does require a gimmick match at this point. I mean, you had Sasha go over Charlotte on Raw, and then you had Charlotte go over Sasha, making it look like she going off of the back injury and everything in that sense with SummerSlam. And then you had Sasha going over Charlotte again on one of the Raws. And the 2 of them are playing it off really well. I'm thoroughly enjoying what they're doing in the terms of setting up this match. And it's going to be interesting to see what they do. Because you've seen in pretty much most of their matches, if not all of their matches, these two are ambitious with the stuff that they want to do. And I don't think, obviously, they're gonna do something super crazy inside of the structure, but spots wise or like action wise, those 2 are very ambitious, and they're going to try something outside of the box for that match to try to amp it up even more. It'll be interesting to see what they decide to do in that case. So we'll see how everything goes there. So again, 2 pretty good interviews from Sasha and Charlotte throughout the night, and we'll see where they go with everything going into going into the pay-per-view. More than likely, they'll do some kind of contract signing or something like that. Who knows what they're going to do next week to set the finishing touches towards the women's Hell in a Cell match to go along with everything. Now, on to what has to be the big thing of the night. And before fully going into that, I'm going to go off and say this crowd was a hot crowd throughout the entire night. I wouldn't say they were thoroughly enjoying everything, but they were getting behind a lot of the people. And you saw that especially at the end. But you're also, like, when Bayley came out, like, even bigger reaction. You got in some of the chants were going that you typically heard down in NXT in that sense from the Denver crowd. So you had a really good crowd this night. And a lot of them were getting behind a lot of things like the Cesaro and Sheamus stuff, the Rollins and Jericho stuff. Though that Sparkle crotch joke was pretty bad. It did get a chant in the end. It's still bad in the end. But like I said, they had a hot crowd. And the final thing that they did for the night was Goldberg coming back to accept the challenge for Brock Lesnar. You know, it was a given. And I love the aspect of Paul Heyman doing a promo beforehand. It's like, Goldberg's not going to show up to Denver to just say no. It's like everybody knew the answer was going to be yes in the end. But the reaction that Goldberg got, the aspect that, yes, even though they switched it off to the WWE version of the theme after his promo, the fact that they played the WCW variation, which is a better variation of his theme music, by the way, for anybody who wants to know, is a better variation of his theme music. I was not a big fan of his WWE variation, but the WCW variation got played as his entrance was being done. The fact they did the full entrance as well to go along with everything. The chants throughout the entire time. The crowd was one of those like welcome back moments for everything. And the crowd just loved the aspect that Goldberg was there. His promo. We'll go off of the aspect of the real stuff first, which was like him explaining why he wanted to return and everything like that. I liked how he was speaking there. You could tell he was speaking from the heart and everything in that sense. It was kind of true to what he usually says in interviews about everything. Like he likes doing things for kids. He likes being able to semi-play a superhero and something like that. And then also the aspect of his wife and son have never seen him do this before. And he wants them to see him do it one last time. Now his actual promo on Brock Lesnar, I know it's hard. It's not hard for him to really top any of his old promos, because if you watch a lot of old Goldberg promos, they're not very good. But this is by far his best promo he's ever done. And I like the aspect at the end of the promo that when he accepts Brock Lesnar's challenge, it's like, not only Brock Lesnar are you next, you're last. Indicating that it's more than likely going to be his last match that he's ever going to do in any way, shape, or form. So I like the stuff from Goldberg this week. It came off really well. Now they're going to have Brock Lesnar on next week. Obviously, then they're going to announce the time. More than likely, it's going to be for Survivor Series, though. Personally, I would like to see it at the Rumble versus Survivor Series. They kind of have enough there with Survivor Series as it is. Maybe they can save it for the Rumble and sell and potentially sell out the Alamo Dome, because I feel like the way that the crowd reacted tonight and the potential build-up, especially if both guys are going to be motivated, because as a person who watched the Goldberg-Lesnar match 12 years ago, it was 12 years ago at WrestleMania 20, knowing that both those guys were not motivated, but we know at least in this point in time, Goldberg's motivated to put on a good match. Now it's going to be an aspect, is Lesnar going to be motivated to put on a good match with Goldberg in that sense of everything. So we'll see how everything plays out. But that's towards the match and everything, because leading into it's going to be a lot of Heyman talk going along with Goldberg, and that's usually pretty good. to go along with everything. So we'll see how everything plays out and which one they're going to be choosing, because you know it's either going to be Survivor Series or it's going to be the Rumble, more than likely. You know it's not going to be WrestleMania, because apparently they have plans for Brock Lesnar at WrestleMania as well. So we'll see how everything plays out and we'll see which pay-per-view it ends up being on. I'm thinking it's going to be Survivor Series, though I would like to see them save it for the Rumble. That's just me personally. I wouldn't mind that being over there in that sense. But the aspect is, I saw that first match. I know how bad that first match between the two of them was. But this time you at least have one of the guys that's motivated, because both of them are not leaving this time, the next night. So it's going to be an aspect of how can they play off, what can Goldberg still do, what will Brock do in the match, and everything in that sense. So we'll see how everything goes. Overall this week, obviously there were some ups and downs to the show. Obviously just some dead air as well to go along with everything. Then again, when you have 3 hours to fill, you got to expect dead air, unfortunately, for some of their stuff. But overall, thoroughly enjoyable Monday Night Raw. So we'll see how everything goes going into Hell in a Cell. That is my review this week for Monday Night Raw. I thank you guys for watching, and I hope you have a great day.